So let's get into it. So what I wanted to is what we're going to do over the next 6 weeks is we're going to cover off a whole range of key topics to make sure that we all get a great understanding of what it takes to support our growth and our journey within our health and fitness with our nutrition. But for today, what I want to do is break down some of the fundamentals on what our nutrition is, how it affects our body, all the way from physically and mentally and emotionally, and also to help break apart some misunderstandings about what food is and what nutrition does and how it all affects in our life. So today's focus is all about macronutrients. We're going to focus on macronutrients versus calories, and we're going to rephrase. What we're going to do is we want to start thinking about how we look at nutrition and not as calories. And the reason why we don't want to look at calories is because when we focus on calories, we actually miss the valuable the value that the food has for our body. So when we think about calories, we have a lot of people that will focus on eating a set amount of calories per day, and we can have foods that have calories in there, like rice crackers, for example, might only have 100 calories per serve, but the value to our body is significantly less than, let's say, 100 calories worth of peanuts. So the reason why we want to focus on macronutrients as our goal in terms of how we learn about nutrition versus calories is that calories can be very misleading. We can have hollow calories, we can have very bad calories for us, but what we can't do is we don't get a very good breakdown on what we need to produce results within our body focusing on calories. So we're going to break that apart as well. What we also want to focus on is knowing what our food is made of, okay? And this is really important to understand the difference between a macronutrient and a calorie, because when we understand what our food is made of, then we're more focused on performance-based nutrition, or nutrition that supports our goal, versus consuming a calorie or not consuming enough calories. So, for example, a diet Coke might have 3 calories in there, but or 3 or 10 calories in there. And we think, well, we can have all of those we like, and it's not going to hurt us. However, the macronutrient on there within that sugar and that aspartame and everything else in there, it can be quite toxic for the body. On the same side of on the opposite side of the equation, where we have people who are calorie conscious, is they will avoid eating potatoes, starchy vegetables, green vegetables, beans and legumes, because the calorie content is high, like 150 to 200 calories. However, the benefit to the body in terms of the macronutrients is 1,000 times better than anything else that we can have. So we want to focus on changing our mindset from calories to macronutrients. The other thing we want to do is we want to create a healthy relationship with food. And creating a healthy relationship with food means that we understand what and how we need to be eating to live the life that we want to get the results we want to have, and not feel guilty about eating. And more importantly, not punish ourselves for overeating on the weekends and stuff like that, or having a cupcake, and then not undereating because we think we've overeaten. And the other thing about having a healthy relationship with food is that we work with a lot of people who over-exercise because they think they've overeaten, or they overeat because they've exercised. Now what we want to do is the first thing we need to do when we talk about our nutrition, before it becomes more important about learning about what stuff is, how food timings, meal timings, keto, paleo, and all those types of things about nutrition, is we need to be in a position within our own life, within our own day, that we've got a healthy relationship with food. Because if we've got an unhealthy relationship with food, we'll self-sabotage the way that we eat, and when we eat, and why we eat, and how much we eat. And what I mean by a healthy relationship with food is that first off, it's an understanding of what types of food are good for us, and understanding the quantities. So, for example, a plate of steak and potatoes is significantly better for us than the same calorie version within McDonald's. But most people will happily go and have a cheeseburger from McDonald's because it's a smaller calorie meal versus a piece of steak and some vegetables. The other thing with creating a healthy relationship with food is that we also want to understand that what we eat affects our emotional health, it affects our mental health, it affects our cognitive ability. And if we're putting processed, refined, crappy foods into our body, then we're going to create a crappy output. And if this is the foundation that we have when we step into the gym, or you step into our gym, or you step into a training program, you're going to have very limited results, because you're going to try and push your body to a physical max, and it's going to require that high-end food. It's going to require good macronutrients, good wholesome food, but you're feeding it junk, and it just can't do what it needs to do. So how do we create a healthy relationship with food? So my philosophy is that first off, we find and we address the things that are holding us back. So the things that generally, the types of things that hold us back within a healthy, creating a healthy relationship with food is knowing what types of foods are good or bad for us. Calories, understanding calories versus macros. And remember, macros are king, calories are clown. Also understanding meal timings, okay, and meal quantities for our, we're going to start on whole foods versus processed foods. So if we want to produce if we want to produce a great house, okay, we want to build like a Sistine Chapel, or we want to put astronauts in space, we have to create a strong foundation of the fabrics and the tools and the ingredients we use to create those buildings. Your body is exactly the same. So when we create a healthy relationship with food, it's understanding that that whole foods are king. So resorting to packaged foods, resorting to low-calorie foods, resorting to low-sugar stuff, resorting to cheaper knockoffs of food are generally going to give you a very, very poor result. Not just in how you get within the gym in terms of body fat and strength, but the building blocks needed to create the rest of your energy system throughout the day. So what we want to do when we look at our nutrition and our food is look at how much of our meal can we get from wholesome whole grain food. And you'll see like vegans and vegetarians and even people on the keto diet, a lot of their food is brought from wholesome foods. It's basically stuff you can buy from the farmers market. It's it's grass-fed meat. It's very little processed food. It's very little dairy. It's very little processed cheese. It's very little stuff out of the packet. It's basically stuff that we would eat 20 or 30 years ago. And this relationship with their food is not based, the results they get is not based because they're vegan or keto and all that. It's the types of foods they get in there. And there's an understanding there that the relationship with their food is whole foods are better. So the first thing we want to address when we create a relationship with food is, where is our nutrition coming from? How much of our food is coming from a packet, or how much of our stuff is coming from frozen foods, or how much of our stuff is coming from fast foods? Because our understanding on nutrition that allows us to make that choice that, I'm going to go get a meal, so I'm going to go to KFC, or I'm going to go to Subway or something like that, and have that type of food versus something I can prepare and make myself, is going to create the foundations of where you're able to move forward to on your next journey. On the next stage is calories and macros. When we live on a calorie-based diet, all we're doing is we're just trying to eat to a number. And when we try and eat to a number, it doesn't give our body the nutrients that we need. Now I'll go over what macronutrients and all that are and break them down in a minute. But if we're just trying to live to a number and we live to a calorie-based diet, a lot of people will come in and say, look, I've just got to eat 1,200 calories a day, or I just want to eat 1,600 calories a day. I'm not going to go over 2,400 calories. And that gives a very limiting belief, because then you start looking at foods on calories. And then when you just look at food or what you eat on calories, then a lot of the processed and packaged and cheap foods that are an option become a much better option for you. But those things don't provide good fuel and good resources for your body to do their work. So when we want to look at creating a good relationship with food, we want to understand that the foundation of good nutrition comes from whole farmers market level type of food, not based on their calorie. Obviously, within our calorie, and the way that we coach all of you guys is that we use our calories to set the maximum amount of fuel that we need for the day, but we certainly don't set types of foods based on, I want you to have a 60-calorie snack, and I want you to get that from the fast food aisle or the health food aisle within the shop. The next thing is understanding meal timings and how much and when you're allowed to eat. Now, I'm going to help you dispel a myth here, a myth, and that is that you don't have to stop eating after 6 o'clock. Your body doesn't care what time of the day it is. Okay, eating after 6 o'clock because your body doesn't digest food is a myth and it's crap. Eating after 6 o'clock because your body's going to store it all from fat because you sit on the couch is a myth. Okay, those types of myths are generated because the types of people who are sitting on their couch after 6 o'clock at night are generally the same type of people who aren't doing anything throughout the day. So, when doctors were making those suggestions, it was aimed at a demographic who were very, very low in energy output. So they weren't exercising very lot. They had a very sedentary life. So it made sense to limit the amount of window within they eat and try and extend the amount of time they didn't eat by restricting that window there. The body doesn't really care what time of the day it does. What it does care about is whether it needs food or not. Okay. Now, the easiest analogy on this is that the easiest analogy on understanding this is your car. Now, if you're let's say you're a stay-at-home mum or dad, okay, and the only time you get in your car is to pick your kids up and drop them off and pick them up from school. So if you're only driving your car 50 kilometers a day, you don't need to put fuel in it every day. You might top up once every 2 weeks. Okay, let's go back in now. If you're a delivery driver, for example, and you drop your kids off to school, and then you go and do 25, 30 drop-offs throughout the day, and you're driving around Cairns all the time, and you get home at the end of the day, your fuel tank's going to be empty. Your car doesn't care what time of the day it is; it just needs fuel. Okay, so we need to look at our bodies in a very similar metaphor, because if you're up at 6 o'clock in the morning and then you go for a run or you come to the gym and then you've got 8 hours of day of work, you're running the kids around after work, you might go to the gym in the afternoon again, you might play sports in the afternoon, you go to bed at 10 o'clock after you've cleaned the kids, cleaned the house and made dinners and made lunches, socialize with your friends, mowed the lawn, cleaned the kitchen, whatever you've got on, you're expending fuel, you're chewing through it all the time. So your body doesn't care that it's 7 o'clock at night. If you're still burning through fuel and you don't go to bed for another 3.5 hours, your body needs more fuel. So understanding our meal timings and our meal quantities is really important, because it becomes a reflection on your lifestyle. So to give you a real life example, when Ginny and I are in competition mode, when we train for a competition, my calories go anywhere between 3.5 and 4.5, 5,000 calories a day. So my calories can go up to 3.5 to anywhere between 3.5 and 5,000 calories a day. So that means that I'm having 2.5 to 4, anywhere between 3 to 4 cups of rice a day. I'm having a chicken breast and 4 meals a day. I'm having about 4.5 cups of vegetables. There's obviously fats in there, so like butters and avocados. I'm having a pre-workout shake. I'm having a post-workout shake, and I'm still hungry after that. So I've still got more room in there for a snack and a dessert. So my calorie demand, my fuel, because I'm doing lots of stops, goes up. Okay, but if I'm in off season, like I've been in off season for the last couple of weeks, I don't need to eat all that food. So I can drop my meals down to 3 meals a day. I can drop my quantities down to 2,500 calories, and I can manage how much I need, because I don't need to have those big serves. Another really interesting real life example for most people is that when you look at elite athletes, when elite athletes finish their sport, when they finish their career and they turn up and they just do presenting on TV, or they just go to hosting shows and stuff like that. Like a lot of cricketers, you'll notice a lot of cricketers, sprinters, wrestlers, and Olympic gymnastics and stuff like that. Sports like that. 2 or 3 years after their competitive sports finished, they've had these massive big body blowouts. They put a lot of body fat on and all that. And you look at them, 2 years ago, well, I used to be an elite athlete. And that's not because they're not doing any sports now. It's because their energy out has changed, but their eating habits haven't. So once they get back into sports, like when Ian Thorpe left, had that 2 or 3 years off, about 5, 6 years ago, and they decided he was going to get back into it, he cut up really, really quickly, because his energy out went straight back up, but his nutrition stayed right on point.
I'm going to bed.
Night, Bob. And so we need to do exactly the same thing. Our meals are reflective of what our lifestyle's like. And the last one, meals, portion sizes. Okay. Now your portion sizes are portion sizes are basically going to be broken down to the types of macros that are on the meal. So you can live on 2 meals a day. If you need 3,000 calories a day and you can fit 1,500 calorie meals in, which is 2 Big Mac meals in the morning and 2 Big Mac meals in the afternoon. You feel like crap on it, but you could fit those 1,500 calorie meals in. It's not ideal, but if you're a shift worker, let's say you're working over in the mines, you're doing fly and flight, you're doing a 12-hour shift, you need a big breakfast and then a big afternoon tea. If that's all you've got to eat, your body will respond to it. If we're working a 6-hour job, we've got breakfast, we've got morning tea, lunchtime, afternoon tea, dinner, and a snack, then what we need to do is break down our meals so that our required amount of fuel for the day is put in those tiny little doses. Now, when we think about meal portions and meal sizings and meal timings, is that we want to make sure that we've got the fuel tank is filled up at the right amount per day. The fuel tank is filled up to the right amount per day. And if we're going to break that fuel tank up, so those pit stops, into 5 pit stops, then that fuel tank needs to be broken into 5 equal serves. If we're only going to have 3 pit stops per day, that fuel tank gets broken into 3 pit stops. If you only get 2, then it gets broken into 2. Just because you can only get twice a day or 6 times a day doesn't mean that your required amount of fuel changes per day. Okay, it's based around your lifestyle. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with going hungry for 6 hours. Let's say, for example, you're a cleaner or you're on a shift work at the hospital and you start at 2 and you don't finish till 7 and you don't get a break at all. That's okay. But within your lifestyle, you need to manage your pit stops better. You can't just sit there every day and go, geez, that was crap, that was crap, that was crap, because it's going to take a negative effect on you. You got to step up and obviously understand that I need to get better pit stops. So I'm going to have a pit stop before work and I'm going to have a pit stop straight after, and then I might have a pit stop 3 hours after that. So breaking down your meal timings and your portions are really, really important. So once we get those things down in pat, then we get a better relationship with food, because once we understand our calories are crap and our macros are better, our meal portion sizes and our meal frequency is important, and the types of foods that we eat are key versus whole foods from the farmers markets versus packaged foods from aisle 3 to 7 in Coles, then we can start creating better meal plans and better lifestyle plans so that we can move forward on that into things like diet plans and stuff like that, by paleo and keto. As we move forward into creating a healthy understanding of food, the first thing one of the things we want to address is there's no such thing as a superfood. Okay, kale is not a superfood. Legumes are not a superfood. Turmeric is a really high quality food, but it's not a superfood in terms of you're going to get more out of it. So you need to eat as much of it as you can. We've got foods that are basically wholesome for the body and stuff that isn't. Okay. Now you've got foods that all real foods are wholesome for the body, and they're wholesome in different areas. Just like your friends in your life, you've got all these groups of friends, and each different friend is valuable in a different area of your life. You've got some friends that you'll go and have a beer with just because you can. You've got some friends that you'll go and talk about personal issues with. You've got some friends you only catch up with once every 6 or 7 months. They're all your friends, but they've got different values, but they all make you complete. Your foods are exactly the same. There's no super food. Okay? There's no super nuts. There's no super grain. There's no fucking super vegetable. It's basically they're all valuable in different quantities at different stages of your life. So don't look at things and go, well, this nut is better than that nut because there's a superfood. You need to look at it and go, well, how does it fit into what I need to be doing right now? Okay. And with that in mind, we want to find foods that support you in your journey, not your ego. Okay. So what I mean by that is that have foods. You need to look at foods and go, if I want to get stronger, if I want to add lean muscle mass, if I want to drop body fat, then I'm going to be eating from this quadrant of the food. But if your ego and if your association to food is still not so good, and you're worried about calories and you're worried about carbs make me fat and I can't eat after 6 and all those types of things, you're going to start choosing from a smaller group of foods that aren't going to support where you want to go and what you're doing. So as we move forward, we want to be going up to this category up here and taking and consuming foods that support what we want to do, okay? And not foods that we think are better and we make poor choices on. Just like when you come into the gym, if Scotty and I ask you to do burpees or deadlifts or ask you to push a little bit further or do some exercise you might not want to do, we do it because we know that's supporting your journey. We know that's where you need to go. The same thing if we ask you to drop the weights down. If we think we need to drop the weights down because your skill's not quite there or you're looking a bit tired or you're looking a bit fatigued, we're putting it up in this section here. Even though your ego's down here goes, fuck that, I want to work faster, I want to lift more weight, I just want to do more reps. That's not where you need to be. That's not where results are. It's that adult decision up here on eating foods to support your journey. All right, so let's go over what macronutrients are, because the foundation to what we're going to do moving forward is is understanding what macros are, how they fit into our lifestyle, and making better choices on them. Because the first thing we're going to make sure we don't do is we don't eat meals to a calorie count in terms of eating low-calorie meals, because we don't want to eat so much calories. So macronutrients. Macronutrients are basically, macro is basically large, it's big, okay? My bank balance is not macro at the moment, okay? So because I've been on holidays. But macronutrients basically refer to the three key nutrients, which is protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And whether you like carbohydrates and fats or not, you need them to survive, okay? Macros are basically just a mix of calories and energy, okay? Each macronutrient, protein, carbs, and carbohydrates, and fats give you some sort of result. Now, what they are and where they are. Proteins are easy. These are where it come from meat, okay? Basically, straight from animals. So beef, lamb, chicken, fish, legumes to some extent, eggs, a bucket load of kale, within 140 grams of nuts, you get 6 grams of protein in there. But basically, your protein is your building block for your strength, okay? Now, you don't create energy from protein. It's very, very challenging for your body to convert protein into energy in terms of fuel, okay? So we can't just eat meat, okay? It's very, very challenging to get energy just from protein for the body. But what your protein does do, apart from supporting your immune system, making your fingernails and hair look shiny and nice and strong, is that it converts into amino acids within the body, and then that helps muscle development and strength gain. So it's essentially adding more onto your body in terms of repairing the muscles and supporting the immune system and supporting the digestive system in the growth in moving forward. So for us, the way that we run our nutrition philosophy is that the protein is pretty much set per body weight. So with our girls, we start them at 1.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, and with our guys, 1.5 to 2, depending on where they are on the strength scale. And that doesn't really change. Doesn't matter what your goal is or how much body weight you've got. If you're 100 kilos, you're going to be eating 200 grams of protein. If you're 100 kilos of muscle, you're going to have 200 grams of protein per day. But if you're 100 kilos with a 40% body weight, you've only got 60 kilos of lean muscle, you're only going to have roughly about 140 to 150 grams of protein. So your protein as a macronutrient is pretty consistent. Now, your best sources of protein, grass-fed beef or grass-fed meat, okay, or anything fresh, like fresh eggs and stuff like that. Your poor sources of protein are tinned meat, okay, packaged meat, apart from jerky, but and anything refined, okay. To give you an idea what I mean by refined is a beef patty from McDonald's, for example. The beef patty is made up of the offcuts of 200 to 300 different animals from around the globe. Not the same herd, okay. It's just the offcuts of all of the offal of the meat, okay, packed into a meat patty, okay. Plus all of the MSG and all the other crap that's in there, okay. So meat from McDonald's as a beef patty is not a good quality source of meat. But if you go to a butcher and get some grass-fed beef and mince it up yourself, that beef patty is going to be substantially better for you in terms of macronutrient breakdown. And the other benefit about a good quality macronutrient is that it has vitamins and minerals and supporting other micronutrients in there, where we don't get that from other things. This is why calories are not the key defining gauge we want to be following when we start tracking our nutrition. So protein sources. Okay. Next one is carbohydrates. Now you've got not good and bad carbohydrates. You've got your carbohydrates. So simple carbohydrates you don't need much of, but you still need some of. And then you've got complex carbohydrates, which you need a lot of, but not an excessive amount. So what I mean by that is that we generally look at carbohydrates as good and bad. And that's a really good way to look at it, because when we look at carbohydrates as good and bad, what we want to do is go, is my carbohydrate a good carbohydrate? So is it coming from chips? Is it coming from packaged food? Is it coming from soft drink? Those are bad carbohydrates. But if we've got good carbohydrates, they're coming from wholesome food. And in terms of simple and complex carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates are basically sugars, honeys, candies, and things like that. They're not bad, but they're not the most ideal amount of carbohydrate we want to have in our body, because what they do is obviously they spike our blood insulin levels, and they cause a diabetic effect, blood sugar rushes, and stuff like that. We still need simple carbohydrates, because simple carbohydrates allow glucose, which is sugar, to go into the bloodstream, and then it'll be triggered quickly to be stored as a glycogen into the muscles. Okay, so if we're in a post-workout scenario, so we've just done an hour and a half in the gym, The muscles are low in glycogen. Okay, this is why we lose strength as we get further into our workout. Then what we want is we want that sugar, that glycogen, to be put straight back into the body. So glycogenesis is the process where basically we digest carbohydrates, the simple sugars. The body strips them out of the digestive system by soaking it up through the small intestines, shoots it out to the bloodstream. The bloodstream goes, thank you very much, and all the muscles absorb that sugar out of the blood. It's converted to glucose, goes back into the body. So we still need simple carbohydrates. That's why you'll see, like Ginny and I will snack on things like gummy bears and jelly beans during our workout, because that will go straight into our bloodstream, straight into the muscles. When I don't need simple carbohydrates is 7 o'clock in the morning when I have breakfast. I don't need to be eating boxed cereal because that is jam-packed full of simple carbohydrates. What I don't need to be having is I don't need to be having a copious amount of sugars and honeys on top of my teas, and I don't need to be having cakes because they're jam-packed full of simple carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates, however, they're your friend. Basically, the complex carbohydrates are things like your starchy vegetables, your beans, your potatoes, your lentils, things you have to chew, okay? Things you have to chew to absorb. And what makes them complex is basically in a simple carbohydrate, they're 2 chains of sugar, okay? Into two molecules of sugar or 2 chains, and they snap apart very, very quickly. In a complex carbohydrate, they're 9 molecules long or 9 chains long, okay? And it takes the body longer to digest them. So you don't get that spike in your bloodstream, okay? And that's mainly because it's attached to fiber, and fiber slows down the process of absorption, but it gets a slower incremental increase, okay? So think of it like your wage or your salary, okay? A simple carbohydrate in terms of a salary would be getting paid monthly, okay? Get one big pay, bang, use it up straight away. A complex carbohydrate is much more rewarding. You get it weekly, smaller doses where you can slowly manage your spending throughout the whole month, so you're not living off your mate's couch by the end of the month. So simple carbohydrates are good. We like a little bit of a cash influx, but not ideal. Okay, we want to try and steer away from those. Not avoid them because we still need them, but steer away. The difference between your carbohydrates, simple and complex, is they're not good or bad. It's like I said, you just need to know when to use them. Okay, now, your ideal timing on when to use them is basically simple carbohydrates are ideal around your workout. So if you look at things like pre-workout drinks, intra-workout, post-workout shakes, they're basically made up of simple carbohydrates. Your pre-workout drink is a shot of caffeine and and a couple of tablespoons of sugar. That's generally what most pre-workouts are. Your intra-workout is something like a Powerade or an electrolyte drink, which is laced with sugar because it gets into the digestive system very, very quickly. And most post-workouts are basically anywhere between 40 to 60 grams worth of sugar and about 30 to 40 grams worth of protein. The simple sugars convert straight into, they trigger the glycogenesis response and go straight into the muscles. Very few products in the post-workout market use complex carbohydrates or refined complex carbohydrates as their carbohydrate source. Companies like Reflex and the other, I can't remember the actual, I met the guy down in a fitness expo 3 years ago, but he passed away not long after that. But he used those potatoes. The Americans call their potatoes yams. He used yams. He used dehydrated yams ground down as their carbohydrate source. So, but Optimum Nutrition and Masashi, it's basically just refined sugar. Okay, so not ideal. But in terms of your meal timings, they're probably the only real times you want to be, having your simple carbohydrates in there. Every other time, what you want to do is you want that pay to come in weekly. Okay, so your complex carbohydrates, your potatoes, your rices, your beans, and your lentils, make them part of your meal whenever you have your 3 to 5 meals a day. So you get a slow, incremental release of energy. Okay, around your workout, you're only working out for an hour, and you're flooring the shit out of your car, so you're trying to get there fast. So those simple carbohydrates work to your advantage. All right, how much do I need? So, fats. I forgot fats. How to get fats? We need fats. Now, there's a big drive on fats at the moment. When I was growing up, fats were bad. Okay, when I was in my 20s or late 20s, carbohydrates were bad, or vice versa. Fats were bad when I was growing up. Carbs were bad when I was when I was an adult. But what we actually need to address is that what does our body need? What does our body need at the type of athlete and the type of lifestyle we need? Now, you can't live without fat. Whether you like it or not, you can't. Your brain is 100% fueled on fat. If you don't have 30 to 50 grams of fat per day, your brain's going to start getting all jello and you're going to get brain fog. You're you're going to start getting things. You're not going to be able to do complex tasks. You're not going to be able to think properly, and you're just going to like start getting a little bit docile. So you need fats per day. But the other thing about fats is that you can have, your body can use fats as energy instead of carbohydrates. So we can convert fats into ketones, which is where the keto diet comes from. And then your body will use ketones as energy versus carbohydrates, which is sugar. Okay. Now, for those that grew up in the 80s, a lot of us had cars. I know my parents had cars. It was a petrol and a gas option. Okay. And when we were driving along the highway, Gabe would flick the switch, and we would go from the car running on petrol, and it would flick over to gas. 7 times out of 10, the car would stall. We'd pull over and we'd have to wait, okay, for the whole system to reset, and then we could get back on our way. Your body's exactly the same. If your body is running down the highway and it's used to fueling itself from carbohydrates, and you switch it over to fat, there's going to be a little transition period. But if you go through that transition and then go, all right, I'm going to survive on fats now, and then try and go back to carbs, you're going to have that transition period, and the body's going to get really upset with you, and it's not going to feel very good, and you're going to get a thing called the keto flu. Okay, and that's basically the process of that transition from sugars to fats. So what we promote is that a healthy mix of both. How much do you need? There's no golden rule. Okay, the rule is basically it comes down to a lot of personal things in terms of the types of foods you eat, the times of foods, the times that you eat, your energy expenditure level, how much sleep you get, how much stress you're under, and your digestive health as well. So there's no golden rule. But what we do is we work on a 40-30-30 rule. We start everybody on their breakdown is 30% of their diet comes from protein. So 40% of the diet comes from protein, 30% carbs, 30% fat. And then what we do is we manage the scales based on where you're at. You can't really go below 50 to 60 grams worth of fat per day because your brain needs them. Your cell membranes need fat in the diet because that's the lubrication between your cell membranes. Your gut health needs them. Your digestive system needs them, and things like that. So you can't cut them out. But what we can do is we can avoid bad fats. Trans fats, we absolutely want to avoid trans fats. These are basically hydrogenized oils that are used in things like Nutella, cheap peanut butters, cakes, and things like that. Those trans fats are hugely toxic for the body. Okay. The other types of fats, saturated, unsaturated fats, we have that in a mix. So things like butter are good for us. Things like cream, not so great for us. But avocados, for example, peanuts, fats in salmon, fish oil fats, omega-3s and 6s, they're fantastic fats for us. Okay. We want to have a good, healthy dose of those. Now, when we have a look at how much fat per serving, if we would have a meal in front of us and we were going to sit there and look and go, how much proteins, carbohydrates, and fats can I have? We basically have a high-five version of a meal. Okay. What I mean by a high-five version of a meal is that on our plates, the meat portion is about the size of our palm. Our carbohydrates are the size of our fingers, and our fats are our thumb. Okay. And this is really important to understand because the calorie or energy in those types of three types of macros is different. So you get 4 calories per gram in protein and carbohydrates. However, you get 8 calories per gram in fat. So you don't need a lot of fat to reach your fuel requirement for the day. So if you go and have an avocado, you have a whole avocado, you might get 300-400 calories worth of fuel out of it, even though it's a small portion. Whereas you can have a cup and a half of rice and still not meet the same amount of calories. So it's really important to understand your portion sizes in those types of macros in there. So how much do you need is what I was touching on there. And that is basically it's like I said, it's reflective of where you are and what you do. And what we want to do is we want to find out that seesaw on what works well for you and where you need to sit on top of your results. And what we're going to do over the next 6 weeks is we're going to start playing around with that because I'm going to get you to start from next week when we do our first exercise. I'm going to start looking at it and seeing how you feel. Now, some of the signs on whether we're eating the right amount of food, whether we're consuming enough calories or macros, show up in our life. And this is the first thing that we're going to focus on this week. So what I mean by that is that emotionally, food is directly affective of our emotion, whether we're stressed, whether we're fatigued, whether we're snappy, whether we're hangry, whether we're tolerant normally or intolerant. If you've got kids, and you miss your afternoon tea, and you've got 4 kids that all come home super excited or grumpy, and you haven't had the right amount of food, and you're already running low on energy, and you have 4 kids yapping at you, you might find you a bit more snappier than normal. And then once you go and have a feed, like the Snicker says, have a break, you feel a bit better, and you can manage what's going on. That hangry zone, that little 3 o'clock itis, is not conducive of a healthy lifestyle. It's a sign that says your body's running a little bit low on energy. So what we want to do is over the next week, we're going to start paying attention to how we feel at certain times of the day, and we're going to look back at what's happened over the last 6 hours. Okay. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to start looking at our performance in the gym. Okay. And we're going to start looking at how we performed in the gym and then what's happened to us over the last 24 hours. So let's just start with the negative effects, the effects on the body of not consuming enough calories. Okay, and if we start at let's say 6 o'clock at night, you've just turned up to the gym and it's a deadlift session, and we're doing 27 reps at 86% of your workout, of your maximum weight. Now, for those who haven't done that type of workout, that's an intense workout. That's at that many reps, at that high weight, it's going to burn you out, and you're going to have to. And those types of workouts are designed to deplete your energy, okay, and then tear as much muscle so you get more strength out of there. If you turn up at 6 o'clock and you haven't eaten since 11 o'clock in the morning, okay, the first thing you're going to notice is that you're going to start fatiguing during the warm-up. And by the time you get to your first work set, it's going to feel like a grind, okay? You're going to feel really tired. You're going to feel like it's hard work. You're just going to feel like that weight doesn't want to come up. You're almost going to come back and say, it's too heavy. I don't know what I'm going to do. If you start at 6 and you ate at 4, a good meal, that workout's going to feel great. By the time you finish your warm-up, your central nervous system is going to be activated. You're going to come into that work. You're going to start grinding through those sets, but you're going to feel empowered. You're going to feel strong. And you're going to feel like you can actually achieve that work set through it. And you're going to make all 5 sets. Okay, that's the result we want to start paying attention to in the gym. Now, if we turn up to that 6 o'clock workout and we didn't eat at 4 o'clock, but we ate at 11, and we also didn't sleep the night before, okay, and the day before that we also missed 2 meals, that overflow of not fueling ourselves and not recovering enough is going to show up on our workout, okay? And this is where we have our learning curves with our athletes, our competitive athletes that turn up in the last 4 to 6 weeks. It's really, really paramount to have those things in place, because the first thing that will show up is that we don't hit our reps in the gym. And for most people, Monday is a really good example of how this shows up, because most of us won't sleep well on a Monday, on a weekend. We might have some alcohol, we might miss 2 or 3 meals, or we might put the wrong macronutrients in, and we get to Monday's workout, we're sluggish, slumpy, and we're not feeling very, very good. So what we want to do is we want to start paying attention to when we're using our energy at the most, like our workout, okay, how we feel during that workout, and reference that feeling to the last 3 to 4 hours. If you turn up to workout at 6, you have a really good workout, okay? What you want to do is you want to create an anchor to the things you did leading up to that, so you repeat that process. So if you turn up at 6 o'clock for a workout and you had a 4 o'clock meal, which you don't normally do, and you ate at 11 o'clock, which you most of the time you might miss, and you had a good breakfast, okay? And you turn up and have a really good workout at 6, okay? And you sit there and go, I had a really good workout, and here's what I did. You'll do the same thing the next day. You'll do the same thing the next day, and you'll do the same thing the next day. And when you do those things consistently over time, you'll get better results, but then it becomes a habit. The other thing is that when you do those things regularly and you miss it and you get a different result to what you used to, you can reference back to that and go, you know what? I missed that meal at 4 o'clock, which I don't normally do because I was running around with the kids or storming down in cans. I forgot my meals or whatever happened. Okay. You'll reference that and you'll have a learning point, and that learning point reinforces the things you need to be doing. Okay. So the first thing I always tell people when they come in and say, I'm feeling really tired today, is when did you eat last? Okay, because if you didn't eat in the last 4 hours and you come in and you do a deadlift session with us, you're not going to do a great job. Okay, so there's the really, and I ask that question because I know that that's the first thing that always lets us down. The second thing I ask, how was your sleep? Okay, if you didn't sleep well the night before, your body's not recovered. Okay, if you had restless sleep, your body's not recovered. Your mind's not in the right place. Your central nervous system is still activated. Your HRV's all over the place. And those types of things all lead up to where you are. And you need to look at your workouts as performance-based. What's the best I can do right now? I have to go and perform at 6 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and 7:30 on a Saturday. So what do I need to be doing to put myself in the best window so I can do my best in that spot? It's those things back to time. Then from there, we want to look at the things we're doing after our workout, okay? So if we go into a 6 o'clock workout Ideally, we should have a protein shake straight after the workout. And you can even have some gummy bears because glucose is sugar, is glycogen, and glycogen goes in the muscles after your workout. But straight after your workout, within that 45-minute window, you want to have a protein shake straight away with a little bit of carbs. And within the next hour, 90 minutes to 2 hours, you want to have your next solid meal. And that's complex carbs, good quality protein, good quality fat. And the reason you want to do this is that because you've just gone and flogged your car, you've gone from 0 to 1,000 kilometers an hour, you've made it from here to Townsville in 2.5 hours, and that car needs to be topped up and it needs to be serviced. And during that post window, that post-exercise or that post-exercise window, that's when your body's craving the most amount of nutrients because it's just done all the work. That's when it wants most amount of protein in the blood so it can go repair the muscles. It wants the most amount of carbohydrates in the blood so it can go replace the glucose in the muscles. It wants the most amount of fat so it can start repairing tissues and cells and membranes and stuff like that. Okay, joints get repaired straight after your workout. The other thing you want to do is with that post window is you're not just repairing from the workout you've just done, you're also fueling it for the next 3 or 4 hours after because it's going to be slowly digested into the system. It's going to be slowly absorbed. Okay, it's going to slowly release in your body, just like you pay every week, rather than one big window. I just lost my train of thought. Yes, meal timings. Okay, the meal timings are important. Out of all the meal timings that we focus on, it's the before and after meals of your workouts that are the most important. Okay, in terms of if you've got your good healthy eating plan down pat. So what I want to do over the next 6 weeks is, like I said, we want to start focusing on how we feel before our workout and reference what's happening, just so we can start addressing that. We're going to start creating a healthy understanding of a healthy relationship with food. So we stop sabotaging ourselves, we stop starving ourselves, we stop punishing ourselves. If you're the type of person that goes out and has 2 beers on a Friday afternoon and then goes, fuck it, I'm going to skip breakfast because I had 2 beers, or I went and did a workout so I can afford to have 2 or 3 beers and a cupcake and an ice cream, those are unhealthy relations. We want to start putting a stop to that straight away. We want to start looking at our body from a performance point of view. So what do I need to perform optimally within all areas of my life and not just within the workout? So we want to start paying attention to how we feel throughout the day. If you don't wake up in the morning energized and ready to go and excited about the day, you're not getting enough sleep. You're not getting good quality sleep and your body's lethargic and fatigued because it's not getting the right amount of food. After 4 to 6 hours, or maybe 5 to 7 hours of good quality sleep, you should wake up and be ready to go. You should be excited. You should be sitting there fighting with yourself, arguing and tired and need a coffee to get started and take an hour and a half for your body to wake up. It should already be ready to go because it's in its optimal performance point. No superfoods. Okay, foods are foods. If it's a wholesome food, it's a wholesome food. Foods have different benefits. Okay, some have higher benefits than others, but definitely not better and more significant to exclude them all from there. So does everybody understand where we want to go with this now? The healthy relationship with food is key. Okay, macronutrients are king, calories are the joker. Okay, and you need to look at what your body needs, not what your ego thinks it wants. Okay, that ego around food, that fear of eating, that I don't want to eat bread, well maybe not bread, but I don't want to eat potatoes because they're high in carbs. I don't want to eat starchy vegetables. I don't want to eat after 6. I'm going to have crackers, like the 99 calorie crackers as a meal versus something wholesome because it's low in calories. Those are sabotaging mindsets and they're going to hold us back. We definitely want to be trying to break those down. Meal timings as well, and knowing what your food is made of, okay, versus, cheap calories from McDonald's burgers or rice crackers and stuff like that. Low calorie drinks. Don't buy low calorie yogurt. Okay, I was listening to a webinar last week about low calorie yogurt. You have this low fat yogurt, okay, and he put a really interesting, and he had a really interesting analogy. He said in his podcast, he said, if you've got 100 grams of yogurt in one tub, and then you've got 100 grams of low fat yogurt, okay, that's still 100 grams. So in that low fat yogurt, if they've taken 30% of the fat out, that 30% has to be replaced with something. Okay, it's not a high quality protein. Like, you're not getting more protein because they took the fat out and replaced it with more yogurt protein. They filled it up with something. Okay, they took that fat out of the dairy product of the whey, and they've gone, well, we're going to replace it with something. It's what they replace it with that's toxic to your body. It's all that chemicals and the mixes out there. So if you're having good quality fat, like good quality yogurt, like the Chobani yogurt, I eat that regularly. Good quality cheeses, not that big block cheese that's horrible, like real cheeses, avocados and nuts. You don't need a lot. You just need a thumbs up of it. But If you go and have those low fat options, you might still have the same 100 gram serving, okay? But if I have a full fat yogurt and you have a half fat or 5% fat yogurt, the fat that's missing out of your yogurt is replaced with something that's toxic to your body. You're better off to have the full fat version. Just know what your portion sizes are. Here's our homework for the week, okay? I want you to start paying attention to how you feel during your workout. And the reason I want you to use your workouts is because that is a focused time in your day where it's just you and the training, and you'll focus on how you're feeling. Don't worry about how you're feeling at work because you've got too much stress. Don't worry about how you're feeling when you're taking care of the kids because there's too much input. When you focus on your workout, especially if you're working like Nicole, here's the plan. Scott and I will coach on what we want you to do. Here's the level I want you to do it at. Focus on how you feel during it. Did the workout feel strong? Did you feel engaged to it? Did you feel tired? Did you feel sluggish? However you feel, for the reference, however you feel during that workout, I want you to reference that back to what you've done over the previous 6 hours. If you turn up at 6 o'clock at night and you haven't eaten since 11 o'clock in the morning, you're going to have a slow workout. But if you turn up at 6 o'clock regularly and you regularly eat at 4, you're going to have a better workout. And what this is going to do, this is going to create a learning point for you so you can sit down and look and go, well, I've got to have a workout. I better set my alarm so I can eat. Okay. But what you also want to do is you want to start feeling, you want to start noticing how you feel during those things. And then you can expand it out. Okay. You have breakfast, start having breakfast in the morning. I have breakfast in the morning. I moved my breakfast to 11 now because I'm not doing anything in the morning. But I know that when I was training at 9 o'clock in the morning, I needed to have breakfast at 7. And I tried not eating at 7, but I do heavy weights at 9. So I need the energy. So it didn't work for me. So you start playing around with where everything's at. That's our goal for this week. How are you feeling? Okay. And what did you do previously to understand that? The other thing you can do, if you remember and it's not overwhelming for you, is pay attention when you're feeling tired and worn down and sluggish through the day. If you're regularly tired at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and part of the creatic cycle within the body is normal about 2 or 3 in the afternoon if you're getting up about 6. But if you're regularly overtired and fatigued, or feel like you need a nap or snappy with the kids or just more frustrated than normal, have a pay attention to when you ate last. And if you at 2 o'clock and you didn't eat it from 9 o'clock in the morning, you need to put an extra fuel stop in there, okay? And have a look at it. Tomorrow, when you come back in, set your alarm. I need to eat at 1 o'clock. I'm going to have something to eat about 1:30, so I feel better at 3 o'clock, okay? And I'll just have a top-up snack. And see how your life changes. See how the more energy changes. See how much more energy you've got with your kids, how much more drive you've got to do your afternoon work, how more engaging you are, rather than being tired and run down. A lot of us, and I did this for a long time, the afternoon was just my sleep time. By 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I was exhausted. And I was just running on fumes because I wasn't eating. I'd missed my 12 o'clock meal. And then I'd hit the gym. I'd be at the gym by 3, 3:30. I wouldn't eat again. And then it'd be like 7 or 8 o'clock before I ate the next time. But that afternoon shift for me was just a drag. I was tired. I wasn't as alert as I could just feel like I needed a nap. But put that 3 o'clock meal in for me and it's fucking amazing. So have a look at that within your life. So your 2 bits of homework. Focus on your energy during your workout and how it feels and rate it, and then see what you did the last 4 hours, and then try and break your 2 o'clock-itis. If you're falling asleep at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when did you eat last and what have you done? And start referencing it because your body's sending you signals. It's sending you signs. If you're not sleeping properly, if you've got the right amount of energy, if your strength's getting weaker, if you're over emotional, if you're fatigued, if you're grumpy, those are all signs. Your body's sending you these signals. It's waving these big flags. And if you pay attention to those flags, you can fix up the problem and then not get those flags anymore.